So on that note,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about the business of hockey today,
Okay.
just to get you going.
Yeah, get me really going.
So what I would like for you to do is jumping right into it here is I want you to if you can recount as briefly or as in depth as you'd like what was the process for you, let's say starting the hockey business. So let's skip the part like before when you were like trying to figure out your life and whatever. Let's start from like, okay, I'm starting a hockey business. So from that day of your life when you decided to do that, what the business landscape was like in terms of the hockey development school skills environment and how that progressed over the last 20 something years. And then you like sprinkle in your like what you see with it now and how it works from the business side of it, not so much the development side of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Just steer me if I
Yeah.
have to. Yeah. So
Okay.
when I first started doing this, I was doing some clinics up in Toronto, and I said, because I was asked, and I hadn't skated for a bunch of years, and I said, and I was really looking to get back into hockey some way. I didn't know
Sorry,
what.
who asked?
Former guy, a guy who used to play with, asked me if I'd come up and do, because when I used to play, I used to have guys. I used to pull guys aside and do stuff. So one guy said, "Hey, yeah," we touched base, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come up and do a camp clinic?"
And this
A
would have been
couple
like
times.
what year?
2000.
And were clinics like a thing? Was that
Starting to be a thing.
just starting?
Starting
So you were
to be a
right
thing.
at the like ground
Never heard
floor.
of a private lesson in my life.
Right. Okay.
Never heard of a private lesson in my life, and it was a smaller group, a couple smaller group things, and did a D camp up there. Did that for. I went up there a few times. I liked it, but instantly for me, it was like, this is where I want to be. I want to be back on the ice. That's what I love to do, and it was a true passion. There was nothing in my head that said that this is going to be a business, like zero, maybe a couple bucks here and there, but I wasn't actually doing it for that. I was doing it because I just wanted to get back on the ice. And so I said, I'm going to start it down here in Windsor. And so I looked around. It was a weird time. It was the end of the season. So I thought it was hockey school season, not knowing that there was tryout season and all that stuff. Like I was so out of it for 6 years. Didn't have a clue what was going on in hockey. So I made these brochures up and started handing them out, and didn't really get a lot of people because nobody knew who I was, and no kidding. So anyways, I started off with a couple kids, started off with private lessons, then it just grew and grew and grew and grew. So what I noticed though is when I looked, I saw that there was a few hockey camps going around, and what it was just the old school. Today is skating, tomorrow is like, there was the theme every day. Wasn't very good. I didn't see one hockey school that was good, although I heard that Dr. Shmushkin up in Toronto had a different, unique one that was very, very different than anything else out there. But what I saw from the typical hockey training side was the old school, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they all had the same. They were all the same. They didn't do anything different. Today we're going to work on this. It was is rudimentary the word? Yeah, very rudimentary hockey skills. It wasn't there to make anybody better. It was there, and people made a ton of money at it, that if they did it well and expanded. Right? I remember when I was a kid, it was Can-Am hockey schools, and then down here there was Huron hockey schools. There was the big names, and then there wasn't really anything else except for your local ones that did a week or two at a time. That's what hockey training used to be. And then outside of that, the fitness itself wasn't even taken seriously, right, in 2000. So I mean, the NHL guys and some junior guys went to gyms and trainers, but for the most part, it wasn't a business yet. It was very you might have a trainer, you might have someone that could give you a program and stuff, but it was not even close to what it looked like.
Actual off season, like you're off.
Yeah. So then as I built my business, it was just maybe unique timing or whatever, but I started building down here, and I with my intention of providing something that was different. Like I wanted to look at kids, if you're a defenseman, to do defenseman stuff. If you're a forward, how to do forward stuff. And I mean, the beginning of my program was good, but it wasn't what it is the last few, like obviously the last 10 years, because you get better as a trainer, you get better you're watching more hockey, you're more involved, so you get to see a lot of stuff. So that's that's how it started off.
So would you say you were more focused on bringing it to the individual? Like so this would have been the starting of like skill development, as opposed to we're on the ice doing more team drills and that kind of stuff.
But even the hockey schools then, it was like, I remember, okay, it's typical. Actually, this is very typical, right? If you go to a normal hockey school, right, a typical hockey school, and there's other ways to do it, but if you have to have the right amount of people, right, and the right level of people to do a quality job. But in typical hockey schools, you wouldn't have like the true high end, the true middle, the true lower end. Like typically, it would be whoever signed up to a point, right? To a point. So if you have 30 guys on the ice, and it doesn't like there's always a thing. The big sales point pitch on the hockey schools was this much ice, off ice conditioning, which was dry land training, which was nothing. It was. I don't mean nothing like they didn't do anything, but the typical beat them down
Yeah, it
and
wasn't a
games. Yeah,
purposeful
it wasn't
plan. Yeah.
purposeful. And but what the typical hockey school would do is and it's the way, it's almost the only way it works with a volume of kids. If you're not like, well, it's the only way it really does work. You have to separate, right? So you can do drills, you can do skating, you could use the big chunk of kids all at once. But then what does every hockey school do? One end neutral zone and the other end, and it's like it's honestly, it's time fillers. It's really, what are you getting out of it? Now, there are some people, and there's some ways that you can do it where it is very good. Like if you're specifying in a shooting thing or a stick handling thing, or but for typically, there's how hockey schools were. It was like day one was in a book, day two was in a book, and it was like never deviated from. It was like, there you go, there's your hockey school, right? So as that started to go, people, and I don't know if it was how did this. I'm trying to think of a sentence here. How did it turn into something more, where it became obsessive and like absolutely necessary for every kid to be on the ice doing some sort of training? I don't know when that exactly happened, but I started to see it happen. I think with maybe the internet, that may have sparked like, oh, I can get into business too. And what happened was, if you were, no matter who you were, even if you were good, if someone lowered the price somewhere else and went on the ice and bought a whistle and got some pucks, they would consider themselves a hockey coach, a hockey trainer, whatever. And I feel like some of it got watered down, like a lot of it got watered down. But at the same time, a lot of people started becoming much better because they had to do research. They had to make sure that if someone from Toronto came down here or someone here went to Toronto, you'd get compared to maybe someone that's pretty good, because it was becoming a lot more available, right? So now it's got to the point now where anybody, dads, go out there to train their kids, and it's like, wow. The other thing that really possibly like looking at the business of it is now everyone, like not everyone, but a lot of people are trying to find a way to make a buck off of parents, because parents have become, I don't like to say the word crazy, but when it comes to the hockey world, it's absolutely nuts. Now it's like, if you sell, oh, I'm going to do videos of your kid and I'm going to break down his game. Like, that's good when you're older. Wait, no. It's good if the kid cares and you can pull something apart. Like, not nitpicking, but like, let's just say you're a D and you make a pass and your feet stop moving. You see that on video a few times. It's like, okay, in this situation, you consistently move the puck and then you're a puck watcher. Like, jump into the play or get inside the dots, or your stick isn't good. Like the small things are good. Then as you get older, you can really pick things apart. So anyways, you become a good video guy. You can get some customers. You start a spring team, and it just started snowballing. So I don't know. This isn't any science or anything, but I'm just looking at a lot of people would get in the business, and because someone else was making a little bit of money, and well, I'd rather make a little bit of money than have him make it all, and it just started taking off, and now it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, everybody wants to make some money in hockey, and then coaches started getting paid, and it just became a, well, what happened was, the more people get involved, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I was gonna say the more people get involved, the more bullshit you have to filter through. But I guess if someone's in control of everything, the more bullshit you have to filter through too. But with more people getting involved, everybody have an opinion, everybody going to this guy, that guy, and telling, maybe this guy's a good player and he went to this guy's hockey school, and all of a sudden he tells people, then they need to go to this hockey school. I went on this spring team. Oh, okay, I got to play on the spring team, and people were in a competition of, I don't want that kid to get ahead of me. I don't want that kid to get ahead of my kid, or whatever it was. So it's got way out of hand, and I could go anyway. So we'll stay on the business side. So
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the PowerTech Online Membership Program. If you've been listening to Andy and I wondering, hey, how are they able to get all this podcast content out there? Well, that's because of our members. For just $9.99 a month, you can get access to our online video library, including hundreds of videos of Coach Andy teaching, and have the option for consultation calls with Andy or myself to go over anything you need. We can cover training, nutrition, coaching, parenting, agents, the junior college hockey path, whatever's of interest to you. You'll also be able to participate in our popular Ask Me Anything episodes, have access to special discount codes, and be given priority for any PowerTech in-person camps or events. If you like what we're doing here and you want to support us, this is the best way to do it. Visit powertechhockey.ca/memberships or find the link in the description of this video to learn more. How did you decide, like when you were starting, when did you realize, like, okay, because if I think about a business, there's like certain things that kind of have to happen in order for it to be an actual business. So like if you're selling a service, for example, that could be a business, but adding in the layers of, okay, having an actual facility, like having a home base, having some tools at your disposal that are there where you kind of have a setup, that adds like a whole another layer of, okay, this is more like a business now, as opposed to going door to door selling, which is basically what most hockey schools do, right? It's like you go to this rink and then you go to that rink and then you go to this rink and you're trying to get kids
Websites now.
So at what point?
Social media now.
Social media. So at what point did you see, okay, I can turn this into a business where I have a home base, like I'm established here and I can do this here? And then how did that transition now into where it is now? And how did you decide about like setting prices in order to get like business growth? Because really, like if you think of trainers, so if I rent the ice, it's like, okay, ice here where we're at, ice is like $200 an hour. So it's like, okay, my cost is basically $200. Like that's what my cost is, right? So if I'm by myself running a session, my cost is $200, and then I'm gonna charge X amount an hour that I want, So if that's what your business is, which a lot of trainers, that is what it is, and then they got to pay $20 an hour to helpers or whatever, then that's different than having a facility, having a gym, having a whatever, and trying to make that grow over time with different types of programming within that. So when did you see that start to be a possibility? And then where is your mind at now with how that plays into the hockey school business thing? Because there's a lot of people that do this kind of stuff, right? So it's like, I think it's a good discussion to have on what the reality is of trying to do it, because I see it every summer. Sorry to go on a tangent, but I see it every summer with like guys that used to play, for example, and it's like, okay, they come and run skates because they can control the price. Basically, they want to just get free ice for themselves, and then if I can get X number of guys, it doesn't cost me $200 an hour. And those other players now think it's training. So I'm thinking of one, for example, where there's a guy that's local that still plays. When he's here, he runs skates, and he gets a bunch of like higher end local guys to go skate, and he charges them to do that. And it basically turns into a break even where he's not really running a business, but he wants to still train. That guy could turn into a skills coach one day and then try to do the same thing, but then realize, 3 years down the line, it's actually harder to keep up with that over time because everyone does that. So how do you compete? So all those kinds of things that are playing into it, maybe just thoughts on that whole situation.
So when I started, as far as the price goes, I said, I wanted to make a certain amount of money per hour that I was on the ice. And that's all it was at that point. And I decided on the price based on not really, it wasn't like a really, really well thought out thing. It was more like, I need that it's not worth my time to go and make $50, right? And the second part is especially once I started going and realized very quickly that I could help someone, right? Not just run a skate. That's my point, is not run a skate. And that was my intentions going in there. It wasn't just running a skate. Anybody can run a practice. Some are good, some are bad. Some guys can run a team practice better than a skills guy can. Some skills guys, and vice versa, right? So you have an expertise in certain things, and mine was being able to work with groups, but individuals. And I always liked doing smaller groups, always, until we did camps. So anyways, I was doing that, and I saw a lot of people starting to compete, and I always tried to stay a year or two or three, or like just ahead of the curve as much as I can. So I would do a lot of research. I would look at different ways. Like, am I doing a good job? Am I teaching? Are they getting something out of it? Am I seeing improvement? And the answer was always yes. And then if I saw something that I didn't like, I would change it. We got to the point where it didn't matter anymore because people were going to go for the price or a new name or a new guy that came in town just to try. So you start fighting, not fighting with that, but it's if you start a hockey school tomorrow and you take 10 guys, you took 10 of my guys. That's the bottom line. If 3 people do that, there's 30. And now it's a competition of not necessarily who's better. It's more like who can sell, who can get more ice. And really, if you think about it, if you haven't played hockey, even if you have a little bit, like who's to say that you even know what a good quality program is? That's the biggest issue. That's what I find right now is like, I think a lot of the parents look at volume and getting on the ice for 1 hour or not getting on is better than not getting on the ice for 1 hour. And if I can do that 7 days a week is better than doing it 5. That's how a lot of people think about it. So quality doesn't mean anything as long as you're on the ice sometimes. So anyways, as I was doing that, someone approached me with my first opportunity to have my first gym, and I looked and I said, yeah, I like that place. We can do that, and we started with that, and thinking that would be okay. Now you have your off ice, you have your on ice. We can blend that together. Made some mistakes, did some good things, and then that just evolved. So I think having a facility. Now, there's two sides to it, right? If you have a facility like this one here attached to the arena and our other one that's attached to arenas, it makes sense that you could work out and you can go on the ice with your trainers, providing that they're good. It makes sense. You're here and you do it. But a lot of the times it's no different than anything else. It's just like today you're working out and maybe the guy goes in the workout and today goes, okay, we're gonna do squats, this, and there's no real thought to it. Same with the programs on the ice, right? There's no real thought to it. It's like we're not really necessarily working on anything, or we are, but maybe you're good and I'm shit, or I'm good and you're shit. Like it maybe doesn't mean that it's excellent. So there's some that are great, some that are not. It's the same old thing. But the bottom line is that if you can market it and if you can have people believe, and I'm saying this like truthfully, if you can have people believe that you're spending money in the right place, then you're going to get customers.
Yeah.
You know?
And like that. So, and then you add those layers to it with the facility and all that other stuff. And then you have to increase prices because now you're paying rent.
Well,
now
100%.
you need more staff. You need all these things. So if you're going
to
develop,
with that comes a lot of headaches.
Yeah, right.
Because I remember the first time I had my first facility, I gave up. I had a very, very, I'll call it lucrative, and it wasn't like $1 million, but it was like 1 week in Dallas, and it was I didn't have to say the number. They offered me something, and I said, well, that's of course I'm coming, but I couldn't because I had a lineup of people at the gym, and I was breaking even at the gym. So I had to give that up. So it's like give and go. So if you in a perfect world, if you can do this thing without any overhead, like as a business person, if you could just run around at the rink and show up and not have the overhead, that'd be the best thing ever. But so it's not the best program though.
Right. It's not the best program. It's definitely easier. But then you also it's a constant hustle.
Yeah.
To fill your camp,
yeah.
Right, where you get an established facility and you get a little bit of marketing behind it, and then it's like people come to you
and a home base,
right,
and it looks professional, and it is professional. I mean, especially if you run it professionally.
Yeah. So all those things it's interesting to see because a lot of people that try to jump in on this, I see it like even this summer. There's like 4 new ones this summer in our area of just kids that just finished playing or are still playing. And they're coming back running skates and they pick off X number of guys and it's cheaper and it's all that. And it's harder to gauge like what's good. What's surprising to me and maybe where there's a gap from the business side of it is relating to the higher level players, what's actually good. You know, so like for kids and for parents that are younger, it makes more sense to me that there's confusion or they're not sure. Like in our area, it's the funniest thing because almost all of the well-known trainers in our area were trained by you. So and I don't think people know that, you know, because now some of them do, but now it's been years and years since that time.
Yeah, it's so far removed.
So it's so far removed that some of the people don't even know. Like I was talking to somebody yesterday about one of them, and I'm like, oh yeah, do you know Andy trained him? And they don't know. They didn't know that, right? And so it's like you're getting the same thing.
Yeah.
or a version
of it.
of it.
Could be watered down, could be better.
Yeah, right.
Right. They
So,
could have taken something
but
and
it's
said,
the
okay, that was
same,
good. I'll make it better now.
right? But it's
Or
the
worse.
same. It's the same concept.
Mhm.
But anyways, you see that happen everywhere. Guys pop up, they take a couple here and there, and I think it's interesting for them to see if you want to turn it into an actual business. Like there's a lot more to it. It's like even using like software that we have online to like keep client records and to do all this stuff. Like there's a lot more to it than just, fill your ice and e-transfer me at whatever at gmail.com. You know what I mean? Like there's more to it than that if you want to turn into an actual business kind of thing, But the disconnect that I'm seeing now is with the older group. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the older versus younger clients. And I've noticed it a lot this summer with guys that are higher level guys, which is like at college, OHL, whatever. I was talking to one kid and he was talking about, yeah, I'm gonna go skate at this place too. And I'm like, oh yeah, like is it a good skate or whatever? He's like, no, it's just cheap. Like it's ice and it's cheap. And I'm like, okay, at the level you're at, it's just ice and it's cheap a good reason to do it? But the reality is of the situation is a lot of them start to have to pay for stuff they're on their own. Like so I remember for me, like after, let's say when I was maybe 17, like when I was working, I started working for you, I was paying for my own stuff. So I either was fortunate that I could skate with you because I worked here, or I had to pay. Like I was paying for my own workouts, I was paying for what I was doing. So for a lot of them, it's actually a consideration. So for you now, with that group, that older group, that's higher level, what are your thoughts on the dynamics of organizing that particular group and how that stuff works?
So that's an interesting question, and there's a lot of ways I can go with this, and it's going to depend on the person and the whatever. But it's a really good point. Is that if you so for example, I have a player who is a very good OHL player, was at a pro camp, and for the last couple of years, his feedback was you just got to work on your first few steps. Okay, so he took that very seriously. So now, how do you work on your first few steps? I had one scout say, just do yoga.
It's like loosen up the hips kind of
thing. Stay off the ice. Just do yoga. Okay. Had another scout say, just get a power skating coach. Power skate. And I'm going, I don't know though. I don't know. I'm being honest. I didn't know. Power skating. Okay. So, but I think what they forgot to identify is why. Or is it actually the first three steps? Like, because sometimes appearance could be something too, right? I didn't buy it. I didn't buy either of them. I said, yes, it makes sense.
Like the player came to you with this feedback, and you guys were doing like let's develop a plan.
Well,
kind of thing.
Right? And we're like, okay, so we okay, maybe there's something there, okay, from the appearance, but is getting on the ice like every day with a power skater feasible? First of all, like, let's just say whether it's right or wrong. Is it feasible? Like, how much is it going to cost to have private lessons on just a power skater? That's a lot of money.
If you did power skating for what you need,
so that's a private lesson. And now you have to look at that coach. Is like, okay, does this coach, can they see what my deficiency is? Like, first of all, can they? Everyone says they can, or most people say they can. There's very few people that say, well, I'm not really sure, let's try this, or maybe I'm not the one for you because I don't think it's my business that's going to help you, right? The people don't say that. So, like, first of all, can I identify that? And is it the right thing that we're working on? Like, all those different things. So, number one, it's very, very expensive. Number two, it's can you even identify the right thing?
Okay, so sorry to cut you off. So let's think just the math on that for in our area, let's say you have a private coach that's $50 an hour. If you're doing
plus ice,
right? That's my point. So you're paying
minimum cheap.
Minimum is $250 an hour.
Yeah.
For a private lesson.
Yeah. Do that 10 times.
Yeah. Right.
Do that 20 times. Yeah, and 10 is okay. So there you go. Do some more math. Is 10 enough?
Yeah. Right.
Is 20 enough? So in my mind, it's not. You need reps of correct things. So there's got to be another way to skin this cat. Because you and I both know that a lot of things that we do on the ice can be accomplished off the ice because it's body mechanics. It's learning a new thing. So There's track coaches, there's sprinting coaches, there's lifting, there's the gym, and all these different things that can do it. So finally, this person was identified at a pro camp as you're getting too low. Like the power is off the charts, but it's taking you that tenth of a second to get out of the chute because you load so much. Okay, so someone might be watching this going, "Oh, that's stupid." Well, this is a professional coach, strength coach, identifying something that made sense to me now, because I've been trying to figure out the one thing, and you were too, right? So basically came back and said, let's not get as low when you're recoiling or you're reloading, when you're taking off. Spend a little bit more time on these plyometrics. What you want to do is like get to your where we decide the bottom of a lift is, and then explode quickly, and that should help. And to me, that made more sense. So do you see the issues that you have? You have all these different issues. That's for one kid, right?
And that's for a kid that's asking the right questions, right? And I would say 80 to 90% of them don't even ask the right questions. Like they don't even know what to ask.
Yeah. So now do you need a shooting coach? Is it okay? How much time do you need in shooting? Like you could cover a lot of stuff fairly quickly in shooting, but there's some things that take time. And is 1 enough? Is 10 enough? Like those are the questions. Is it private lessons? Is it groups? So my theory on the older guys is, and I'm being very sincere because I have a son, and these kids that are that age are like my kids, but my son is my son, and I've come to the conclusion, and it's very comes from a very honest place, that I would have him off the ice. And this year we did a much better job, and he did too, because you get anxious as a player, right? You want to get on the ice, you're going to lose your touches, and as a coach, you want to, and a dad, you say, yeah, let's get out there and just touch it. We did a much better job the last 2 years, particularly this year, to keep him off the ice a little bit longer. So we had some comments the other day say, I just read one that said, "You're telling me NHL players stay off the ice all summer?" No, we're saying stay off the ice for a period of time and recover, and then whatever,
build it back up,
rebuild.
Yeah.
So anyways, because the summer gets very long, and we've been on the ice a little bit less this summer. And to me, what happens is, as the older guys, I think there's so much emphasis put on, you got to get on the ice, you got to work a skill, you got to work a skill, you got to work a skill. I said, you know what, these guys are really good. They're really good. And I would say, once you pick your time where you're going to start in the summertime, any ice is, providing you're moving the puck and you got a little bit of competition and you can do things like, if someone puts a PEP system out there, or someone puts 25 pylons with a under the stick thing, what's the difference? Right? Really, is there really that much teaching? Is there really that much you're going to apply? Because at the end of the day, you got to play the game anyways, and the game doesn't look anything like that kind of stuff. So I feel like, as older guys go, yes, you need to do some skating. You need to do some stick handling stuff, like touches like the peps and the cones and all that kind of stuff. That's all good just for the touches, but you need to do things that resemble the game more. So once you get to that OHL level, I don't think it's critically important to have unless you need specific on a skating and something very specific, then you might want to go and find that on the side. Other than that, it really doesn't matter. Like, so for me, I don't get butthurt anymore. I don't feel like I lose customers because we're overpriced or whatever the reasons are, right? I feel like kids want to get on the ice, and if it's a decent thing, it's okay. It's fine. I'm not really butthurt about it.
Yeah, I was looking at I came across a video 2 days ago of it was a day in the life of Jacob Chikrin.
Yeah,
that's his name, right?
Chikrin. Yeah,
Chikrin. Yeah,
yep.
He played with Ottawa, and I think he just got traded to Washington. So I think he's in Washington now. So he was coming back from an injury. It was when he was with Ottawa. He was coming back from an injury, and in the one day he did. He had a skating coach. He had some kind of massage therapy, and then he had needling kind of session. So with those three things, it's like he probably just spent $700, $800
sure. Yeah, probably
in that day.
Unless it's an all-encompassed business,
right? Which it seemed like different things from the video, but regardless, goes to the grocery store, buys his 2 T-bone steaks and all this, right? So, so my point is, like, that guy can afford to pay $800 a day on his routine to maintain his body. When you're running a business, the expectation of the kids being able to do that, or the younger guys being able to do that before they have money like that to pay for it, it's just not going to happen, man. So as the player, maybe this is a little bit more advice for the player now. To your point, you use what resource you have available, and then you have to be intelligent enough to ask the right questions. It's like even with the workouts.
And hopefully you get the right answers.
Right.
Or hopefully you get the right guidance.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
you've seen that several times when someone will ask me or you about something. It's like, well, you don't need to do this.
Right.
This is actually going to not help you.
For sure.
Okay,
For
we're
sure.
going to do it anyways because my dad said so. It's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. But it's even like with the gym this year. Like I only had the guys in the gym for 4 days a week. So I was like, I told them right from the start of the summer, I was like, you guys have to have a little bit of self-drive for some of the extra conditioning stuff if you need that, because I'm not spending one of our days in the gym going for a run. Like we should be doing.
You can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. If you don't do it, that's your fault.
You can stretch,
right? Yeah, you can stretch out. You can do some mobility stuff. Like in here, we're gonna use the tools I have here that you don't have access to when you're not here. So if you don't do those other things, by the time the middle of August comes, you're gonna feel like you're not in good shape, right? Because you need to start layering in your conditioning, right? So that makes sense, as opposed to me charging them to come here 6 days a week or 7 days a week to do a run or to do a whatever, So that's one way from my perspective on the business side where I'm saying, hey, I'm trying to make this more accessible, which means you have to take more responsibility on your own. If you can afford to go to Gary Roberts where they make all your meals and all that stuff for the whole summer,
awesome.
It's like great. That's ideal.
That's great, yeah.
Right? That's great, but it's expensive, man. So I'm thinking of one guy in particular too that plays NCAA, and he's always been a guy that's like very conscious of cost because he has to pay for his own stuff. So he tries to make as much as he can, but if he can't afford it, you can't afford it, man. So it's easy to say, hey, like you're a super high level guy, like this is the time to make the investment, and maybe that's true, but you have to have the money, right? So there's other ways that you can do it too, where if you go to a track coach or you go to a private lesson, like do one and get the teaching points, or do say ahead of time, hey, I want to pay for 2 of these, give me the teaching points I need to work on so I can go and do it on my own or whatever, so try to figure out ways that you can do it to make it more manageable. But from the business side of it, kind of full circle back to what we were saying before, it's like everybody is running something, and in order to be competitive from a business perspective, you have to, one, offer a service that other people don't offer, which is why I super focus on the off-ice nutrition stuff, because I can't even name one person in our area where I'm for sure confident that they run a good off-ice program, right? And maybe it's the same towards me from them. Maybe they don't know that my off-ice program is good or bad or whatever, but I don't know any. I don't know one. I can't say one name where I'm very confident that that's a good off-ice program, because I don't see it. Like I don't see the results from players, but I see the results from my players, and it's like they don't get hurt, which is huge, and they feel like they're in shape when they're on the ice. So those are 2 good metrics for me. But that's where I did it. I specialized in something. I specialized in something. So you have your little niche market, and then you can branch it out in ways that make sense from there. So if you're somebody that wants to run it, not just a hockey school, but run some kind of business in training for hockey, then have something that you can focus on, because now everybody is everything, And I think for me, like moving forward with this stuff from an on-ice perspective, what I see is getting on-ice skills that are actual in-game focus, like in-game, where you're not just saying that on the label that you're selling the program on, because every program that people sell say that, like game applicable skills and all this stuff, but it's like the teaching points of it, So we did, like one example, just again off the top of my head from yesterday, I was on the ice and we did a puck protection drill, and then a 2-on-1 kind of tripod drill where it's like they had to make plays like through like a soft area kind of play in both those drills. And like, even if you went to another practice where they did the same drills, if the teaching isn't there,
just a drill.
It's just a drill,
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a coach and you want to do a good job, actually focusing your teaching on where those things make sense is in an actual game. That is what the focus should be. It's like, so I had a whole spiel with the group I had yesterday saying like, if you guys want to go to higher level, everybody skates, everybody shoots, everybody stick handles. Done. Like if you don't have that, you have no chance. But everybody has that. So the differentiators are the details. It's the little things that being able to read plays and do things in the real game. Like that is where you get noticed. So I think if you're going to specify on the ice, I don't know if you'd agree with this or you would say it's something else, but as a on ice coach, that seems to me to be where the training should go.
Well, 100%. I agree with you 100%. Like, okay, just think of entries. Okay, so you're coming up the ice, entering into the zone. Like, there's a way. There's ways that it appear on the ice, and there's ways to execute entering the zone. And you're right. It's that the slip pass to the outside, right? Kicking it out. There's different things like that, and like putting kids in those situations. It's not exactly like a game, but something like that to teach them the principles of it is better than the kid that works his ass off. You know, you've been doing this all summer where you work your ass off and you end up in the corner trying to make a play. That doesn't work in a game. So it's like understanding little nuances of the game is very important, right? Like yesterday, I was doing one with my junior kids, and it was just like a lot of stuff on the wall, and then I'd have defenders like very passively doing some defensive work. So everyone thought it was an offensive drill, and it is how to separate yourself from stuff. But I was teaching them also like the defensive side of it. So even though we're not really pushing them out and stuff, understand where you're standing on the ice. If you give this lane, they get the middle of the ice. So it's like show them how to flush out and stuff. So like you're learning something about the game. How to, like, even though it's a drill, you're learning something about the game. It's actually very important. Having said that, a lot of people can't even, like, a lot of players come out of that and go, oh, okay, I didn't.
True.
They just go,
Yeah, that's
oh,
true
okay,
too.
we did a drill. And parents can look at a drill and say, well, that was like kind of, they weren't moving, they weren't working real hard, or, oh, that was awesome. Like, and it's like, yeah, but you're missing the actually key pieces here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think about that all the time because a lot of the drills that I choose to do are so simple because that's actually what's going to help right now. You know, like I did one yesterday where they were doing like puck protection along the wall. So that was almost like a figure eight up and down offensive zone. So I started with just doing it. Then I started where they had to like call out the number I'm showing. As soon as I added that piece, I got players toe picking, losing the puck. Like
once the brain
right?
has to connect,
Yeah.
you got to do something other than the task. That's a whole different ballgame.
So like my 4-stage progression on it was that, then calling out the numbers, then doing it with touch passes with me, and then doing it with touch passes with someone mirroring them as like a defender, just passive. And so I had opportunities to say like, okay, everybody can do this one. Good. As soon as I added the game thing where it's like, now you got a shoulder check, look, right? Pay attention to who's around you. Now we have turnovers. Now we have you falling over. Now you're losing the puck. Now, do you see what I'm saying? Like, do you see the game application on where the improvement needs to happen? And they can see that. So, and even if they are lights on, nobody home, like you're talking about, because you always get the group of some of them where they're just like not paying attention or they can't grasp it. At least you're doing what your job is as the coach, is teaching them things that relate to the game. Because at the end of the day, that is what it's supposed to be. And that's where I see the hole with teaching on the ice. There's not a lot of guys that can effectively communicate those messages.
Yeah, and some guys are really good. Yeah. Like we got one guy that started with us, Kyle. He's really good. Yeah. He's really good. He loves being a coach, loves teaching the game, loves it, and it's really energetic about it. And you know, it's good. It's awesome. You know, he does a different style than a lot of people.
Yeah, and he's got a hilarious on ice voice.
Yeah.
High pitch yell is hilarious.
It's good though, right?
Yeah, it's
like
great.
it's awesome.
Yeah,
like it's refreshing. So as the older, we're talking about the older guys. It's like you don't have to overdo it. You know, you're allowed to go away for a little bit. Like it's hard when you're in the middle of it, but if you miss a skate or two in the summer, it's not going to be the end of the world. When you go to the younger guys, it's that's the part that I have the hardest time with because it's almost like I get it. Parents are excited for their kids to play hockey, and parents want to get ahead of the game. They think obviously if you practice more, you're going to be a better player, and there's a part of that that's true for a period of time. If you call them early adapters, right? You get on the ice, and if you're on the ice more than most kids, you probably are going to be pretty good. But it doesn't translate into being a great hockey player later. So I think the biggest confusing part of that, and this is where people make the most money, you could fool the most people, is like from the business side is really attaching yourself to that young group. The younger the better, because you can keep them for a few years, and the volume, and the parents are really excited and eager to do almost anything, and it's enough is never enough, and but it is, but they don't, like, innocently don't know that, or they're just eager parents, and they're the ones that, the people that are in hockey schools training and all that kind of stuff, they're easy to bullshit too. I'm not saying that's what we do. I'm just saying, like, that's the easiest group to convince. You got to get on the ice. You got to get better. And you can fool them with a hard skating, or if they're moving around a lot.
Or just high energy.
Yeah,
like if you're
but
yappy guy.
yeah. So, anyways, like, I don't want to beat that one to death.
Well, I wanted to finish on that anyways with the younger guys, because I want to show the differences from the business side. So let's say you're running the hockey business and you're focusing on the younger guys. Like, if we could do it the best way, optimally, that with the best of intentions, what does that look like from a business side for you, for younger players, if you could do it the right way? So let's even go down to, let's say, 8-year-olds, like the U8 first year of like kind of real hockey. Let's take from that age to 14, which would typically be the range where we're saying, like, it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as you're getting reps and that kind of stuff. So if you could structure a business for that, where it's about actually doing good development things, not just about maximizing the money, then what makes sense with that group?
For me,
Yeah,
is like, this is just for me, and I'm going off of my pure honesty here. If my son was going through hockey again, of course he wants to be on the ice. Of course I would like him to be on the ice. There would be zero panic if he got on the ice all summer or in August. I wouldn't worry about that. But if I did put him into something, I would want it to be more game related. Just game related. I mean, you could have a good combination of maybe even half an hour of skills, because their attention span is absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's
no,
hilarious.
they want to play, man.
It's hilarious, man, because I've got a couple of those groups right now. It's like, all they ever ask is, when are we gonna have fun? That's what they're saying. So you can trick them into, or not trick them. You can do drills, like, it can't be that specific. You just do some skating drills, some passing drills, whatever. Not passing, actually. Just handling the puck and all that kind of stuff. But, like, you want to make it as game related as possible. And I wouldn't. I'm just talking about what I would do with my kid. I wouldn't do it for more than, a camp or two. And if the other option would be, if the option was to go on the ice once or twice a week for 4 weeks, I would do that. But I would want it to be more game related.
Yeah, but talk more like if you're the one running the skates, like, what, instead of from the parent perspective of what you would put them in, like, what if we're running a business for only 7 to 14-year-olds? What does the structure of that look like? Like, what is a plan that makes sense from a business side that's actually good and not just like, let's maximize money?
A combination of skill development games.
So it'd be like your small area and game related things.
Even some full ice when you get older, but it would be small area. Yeah, like a lot of touches. Show them as they get older. You can't do this when they're younger, but every year you get older, you can show them maybe one or two things, or not one or two, but you can show them some things that apply to a game more. You're not doing that at 8, right? They don't even want to pass. They want to score. Like, it's so individual at that point. Once they get to maybe, I could say a 9, 10, 11-year-old AAA guys, you can start showing them some things. But it's basically skill based. So you're going skill, play games, and then teach as you go. And then as you get to 13, 14, you get kids that you can start teaching them some stuff. But games, you want to play all kinds of little games where they're competitive, right? All the stuff, and the reason I say that is because all the stuff that all the toys on the ice and stuff, it's like, it's fine at times, and it's fine, but, like, it's not the way the game is played. But you do have to do a lot of touches of something to do it, to be able to do it in a game. So that's why you do need skill work, right?
Yeah, and that's the toy stuff, especially for the young guys. It can be engaging too. Like, it's fun for them to see a thing on the ice that looks like a player or like whatever, even though it's not. So those things can be useful, I guess, for that reason too. Anything else, like, business of hockey stuff?
Now the business of hockey is like, the other business of hockey is like, how many guys just want to be an agent? How many guys want to, like, they want to get in somehow in the game? necessarily understand why. There's a lot of guys that have never played a game that want to be in the hockey business. I mean, maybe they're fans, maybe they got some good ideas. I don't know. But agents is another one that's, like the difference between agents, or they call them advisors now, than 20 years ago is like now a lot of kids are paying for agents or advisors to make phone calls for them and stuff. It's like people will do, I'll represent you, Eric, and I'll get you to play out west. I'll get you to do this. I will count on me, $5,000. It's like, really? And some are good, some are good, so I guess, and some are necessary, unnecessary. I mean, even a really good hockey player, you don't need an agent until you sign your pro contract. Or I would say even in OHL, maybe, like, if you're not comfortable with representing yourself, there's some benefits to it. But there's not a ton. There's not a whole lot an agent's going to do for you anyways. You got to go out and play. The next business that I would say that actually makes sense. It makes sense now because of the way everything is moving, is the academies actually make sense. It actually makes sense. Yeah, to a certain degree, they make sense. I mean, it's unfortunate. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, we're part of an academy now, and I would have resisted that for a long time. But I'm watching how things are going, and it's like it makes sense, because if you're living in an area like such as ours, or in most places in Ontario, you are bound to boundaries, right? So if you live here, you have to play here, and that's not always necessarily the most ideal spot. So now with the advent of academies, what you get is you get your ice time, which I think a lot of them get too much. But it is what it is. You got to sell the product, and you'll never convince a parent very often, anyways, that you get too much ice, right? But I think it allows you to, if you build a good program, you will have you should have good results, and I think it's just beneficial to the players that qualify to do that. So I think it's very good. It keeps organizations that were just happy with status quo, or this is the way we've done it and this way it's always going to be. Now they're on their toes, and they either have to get better or they're going to be gone. So I think the advent of the academy done properly is awesome. Now, does it cost money? Yep. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's more or less. I don't know. I'm not doing any math here. If it's more, okay, well, you're paying for a program. But you're basically getting your programming all year long, and if you got good quality coaches, it's awesome. And if it's less, then wow, awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one that I've definitely changed my tune on to over time, because the biggest eye opener for me now, being at the top of it, is the schedule, like how optimal the schedule is for guys, from
and
like
for families.
For families, like from the academic athletic standpoint. Now you're not running around from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. or later because you have two kids that play sports. Now it's like, if it's a program like ours where it's all integrated into the same day, which not all of them are, but for ours it's like 8:30 to 11 you do your training, 11 to 4 you do school, and then you're done, and there's nothing for the rest of the day. That's the most optimal thing that I can see. And to your point, at its best, when you have good coaches and people involved, it can really give you a full spectrum kind of development path, from academics, from athletics, both, which I kind of like. So now being involved, I definitely, I'm starting to, not starting, I've changed my tune on that, because it does, people are doing all the shit anyways. That's the thing, So if we're gonna do all the shit, if you're gonna spend all this money, if you're gonna pay for this and pay for that and pay for this, then at the very least, put it in a time frame that makes sense. Instead of, like, I'm talking to some of these U18 kids here. It's like, practice till 11 p.m.
It's not optimal.
It's
the worst.
Makes
it's the
no
worst.
sense.
It's
Man.
the worst.
Makes no
That's
sense.
the worst.
So
that's the worst. Yeah, no, but nonetheless, it's a business. Like, as we're talking about business, it's a business. It's not a charity. It's not your school providing something. It's a business now, and that's just the way it is right now. It's just the way it is. You'd like to fight. I would love to get back to the origins of hockey, and you just play, you have fun, and the cream rises to the top because they work hard, and it didn't depend on if you had money to afford something anymore. But it's just come to that now. It's the business of hockey, right? The business of selling sticks, same stick, different marker on it.
Yeah.
Add $50, right?
Legit.
Like, I don't know if that's 100% true, but it's kind of, change one little thing on the stick and add $50 or $100. It's like, it's the business of hockey. The business of hockey now is selling it you can't watch a commercial without it being a betting thing, right? It's just everything's take whatever you can out of anything you can, right? The business of hockey is the NHL draft, how they make this like prom night, and it's like at the end of the day, you get a shirt and a hat, and you belong to a team, which is awesome. But like, is it necessary to have your family fly down to Vegas or whatever and spend 2-3 nights? And if you're a high enough ranked player, I think that gets paid for. Sometimes the agents pay for it, but still, it's for what? If you get a phone call, you got drafted to the Las Vegas Knights, it's the same. It's no different. Nothing changes. You still got to be a player. You get a hat. You get a jersey.
I mean, I think like I'm gonna end on this is like my thought, like where my brain is.
Podcasts on hockey. It's a business.
Well, but what I'm thinking is like it's fine for things to be a business, but my brain has been going of late is finding a low cost way to get the same result. And from the business side, there's only two ways to actually do something that makes money, because at the end of the day, you have to. It's either you sell an expensive product to a niche market, which is low volume with a high return per person, or you do high volume, right? There's only two ways to do it. And there's ways to do it. But that's where my brain's been at recently. But okay, let's go skate now.
Okay, I gotta go. Yeah.
Okay, bye.